excited about this opportunity to introduce you to the way I paint portraits. Now, I kind of expect my style of portraiture to change. I actually want to get a little looser than what I'm doing, but at the same time, I'm a realist at heart, and I want this to look like the artist, or in this case, the artist, or my grandchild, or whoever. This is a gal. I took this picture when we were on our trip to South Africa, and the light was so perfect that day. This was the Eggman over in France. He had such character, and I loved his hat. And it was really fun. See, I like to get the backgrounds with nothing really happening except a sun and a shadow. And in his case, I decided to put the shadow at the top because of his light hat. And you'll see that part changes with each piece we look at. Now, this is one of my grandsons, and he's a big Wisconsin fan. So I had to get red in the background and red on his shirt. That was really fun to do. And you can see again, the sun's coming from this side. So I basically try to keep a sunny side and a shadow side. This is my husband. I shot this in the bar next door. Couldn't believe it. I just looked over and the light was coming through the window. And we're going to talk about light later, how important it is to have this strong light touching part of the surface and a beautiful shadow on the other, so that you have these great shadow lines to work with. This one isn't done. I do a new portrait almost every week in the summer when I have my busy schedule, so I haven't had time to finish a lot of these. But again, you can see this is the sun side, this is the sunny side of the picture going into the shadow, and I usually have the shadows closer to the subject, but it can go anyway. This is my bookkeeper's son. Oh my, he's a handsome fellow, and it was really fun to paint him. And again, you can see the sun side on the sun side, the shadow on the shadow side, and I also like to add in a little bit of the skin tone into the background. So, all my little tricks here. This is my granddaughter with two of her friends. That was fun to do. I have no idea who this is, but it sure was fun to paint. And I can't wait to finish it. It's going to be so fun to get a few little tones in her little tutu here. And it's also a good idea when you're doing this, if you want to add some props, very often a great hat, or in this case, her American Girl doll. A lot of people there holding balloons. Props are fine. Hats are especially the best. This is my grandson Brody, and I love this because he has those special glasses that get dark when the sun is on him. So, of course, I had to deal with that and try to get the eyes through there. It was quite a challenge. And then sometimes I'll just make up some silly little shape. That's not supposed to be anything. It's just something that happened, so I left it. And this is another grandson. This one I wasn't totally happy with the colors, but I did think that the shadows on the face were really exciting. And the little cock to his hat. It was a fun piece to do. Here's one I can't wait to finish. Hands, a lot of times people are afraid to put in teeth or they don't like to do hands, but I am looking forward to finishing those hands at some point. Now, portraiture, one of the things I especially enjoyed about doing portraiture this past summer with my students was that a lot of them didn't show up with a really good photograph. You have to have an excellent photograph. And so I said, well, let's go outside and take a portrait of you in the sun. Oh, no, I'm not painting myself. Well, some of these ladies, I just said, yes, you are. And look at that fabulous photograph. And she uses this as a little calling card. So she's got her picture and her information. This gal, too, she wasn't too excited about doing it. And look at the beauty. It looks just like her. I think it's great. And this gal from Canada, look at that. Honest to gosh, with the great hair, and this isn't the best reproduction. She actually had a little more color in the background, but just a wonderful idea. So consider doing a portrait of yourself. Well, before we start, I'm actually going to show you how to trace these. But before we start, I really think it's important that you really consider drawing your own pictures. And this is how I actually like to do mine, but in a hurry I will trace them. But what you do is you kind of make the general shape, I better make this darker, the general shape of the head. And the first thing you have to realize that in the center of this head are the eyes. It's really fun to watch little kids' drawings. They always put the eyes up in the forehead. But the actual reality is the eyes are in the middle of the head. And then if you think about dividing this up again, if you divide the bottom into thirds, what this is the center of the nose. This is the center line of the lip. And of course, this is the bottom of the chin. So that's how I like to do it. I like to do it in thirds. And then if you do your eyes on this line, the eyes are an eye apart. So all you have to do is start drawing in the eye. And the eye almost always has this shape. It's higher about a third of the way down, and then it goes more or less down. So this is how almost all eyes are. 1/3, 2/3. And you do the under part of the eye very light, but you do the upper eye very dark. And I always like to get the eye, the actual center of the eye. Okay, so now we've got that. This might be just a little wide. And this is going to vary from person to person. Some people have eyes very wide apart. But generally speaking, one eye apart. You go up the third, come down, follow lightly on the bottom, much darker on the top, do the center of the eye, and then come in. So now we've got some eyes. And then this, as I mentioned, is the center of the nose. So you're almost always going to have that ball shape, plus the edges, and then what we call the crevice darks. And we'll get into that a lot more shortly. The crevice darks are the darks in the nose, in the eyes, in the center line of the lips. Now, in this little girl's case, notice how her upper lip is much closer to her nose than this. So again, now we have to make some adjustments. We're going to move in and do the center of her lips up a little higher. And the lip almost always has a little dip, then it goes up, and it goes out, up, and out to the center line of the eye. So that's a pretty easy one. Then you have the shape of the lower lip and the shape of the upper lip. And generally when you're painting, this upper lip has shadow, and then you have shadow under the lower lip, and that's what creates the light touching that lip. And then your little chin. So I'm just going to make this whole face a little bit shorter here. And then you just look for, okay, is the chin kind of squared off? What's the deal here? She's got cute little chubby cheeks. Very close here. See, we just have a small, and then the cheeks come around. And then she's got this fun hat coming around. So we're not going to get into all that. But let's say she had ears showing. The way you determine ears is you go out from the eye, and the ear starts there and goes up. You come out from the center line of the nose, and the ear starts there and goes down. So these are, like I say, general rules. It's pretty cool. Very, very cool, in fact, to know that. And then eyebrows are gestural. Some are thin, some are thick, some are close together, some are far apart. So you just keep looking for the great differences between everybody's personal characteristics. I find it really fun. Okay, we're ready to move on. The first thing I want to talk about is how important it is to have good light. A lot of times people come in with photographs from a studio where they have light bouncing under umbrellas and everywhere, and there are no sharp shadows like this. They're trying to make you look younger and softer. And a lot of people take pictures with a flash. As soon as that flash goes off, you have flattened all the shadows. So a flash photo, a photo taken in a studio, generally are not good. What's really good is the direct sunlight or light coming through a window or a candle. And here you can see we're sitting in a ferry boat. The light was coming through the window. Look at that gorgeous light. This is what we're looking for, these crisp cast shadows. Love it. This is a fabulous, I have no idea where the light source is here, but it looks like a strong indoor light. And that's just a fabulous reference photo. Here we are back on the ferry boat. Isn't she cute? That's my Rachel. And I loved the fact that she had her braid that day with the hair hanging in her eyes. It was a real fun painting to paint. And of course, here's that one I did a Brody outdoors. But see the cast shadows from something like sunglasses, look at how crisp those are, but look at how soft the shadows are as they go around a cheek. So there's two kind of shadows we're going to be working with. The crisp cast shadows and the soft shadows that define the personal characteristics of each person. Now we're going to get ready to do our painting, and what I want is a line drawing of whatever it is whomever it is that we're going to paint. In this case, see, it's all down to a line drawing, and to get there, here's what I did. This is a real cheat. I love it. I had no idea how to trace because I don't trace. I didn't have tracing paper. I didn't know what to do. So I came up with this idea of taking a transparency. Now this is a transparency like you would get at an Office Max or a Staples. And what I like is you can see perfectly your subject through it. Perfect. So I simply take a permanent pen and I just draw right on top of this transparency and go for any details, as much detail as I want. Now, if I wanted to do even more detail, I could. The trick is, do not draw these shadows. Those we're going to paint freehand. But just come in and draw in the major shapes, the things that really define your picture. And then before you transfer it, what you want to do is look at it. Put it on a white surface, look at it, and then take your photograph and correct it. Because no tracing is going to be as good as your own correcting later. So always be sure to come in, check for the eyes. Now, I just corrected the eye here, and see I've got an extra line there. If I want to get that off, I can just take rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, you can get it at the drugstore, and a Q-tip, and just clean any lines up that you don't like. Like, I don't know why I have this line here. This needs to be cleaned up, this needs to be cleaned up. And when you're perfectly content that you've got a likeness here, then what you do is put it up to a window or put it up to a light box and simply trace the lines. You put it underneath, put this over the top, take a HB pencil and draw your subject on 300-pound hot press paper. Now I used to do cold press, but again, I'm always changing. If I think I find a better way to do it, that's how I do it. And I found out about the hot press paper, and it's absolutely fabulous. With the hot press paper, I can lift much easier. I can soften the edges. With cold press paper, I just couldn't do it the same way. So this is the paper of choice. So now we're ready to get going on the actual paint on paper. Now, if you go to your computer, you can download this information, and it's step by step how to paint the portrait. We also have a downloadable piece of information on photographing your subject. So don't forget to get those out. I think you'll find them very helpful. And we're ready to do the first big step. Now, when I'm placing the subject onto a quarter sheet paper, which is 11 by 15, what I want to do is I want the head to be approximately 7 inches. So see this, 7 inches. And the reason I do that is I think proportionally that fits the paper. It gives you a little background. And if you do it much larger, what happens is the kid looks like a monster. They don't look like the person that they are. So in order to reach this 7 inch, which, you know, it's nice to have a little goal, here's what you do. You take a photograph. I just grabbed one here. And this is 5.5 inches from her chin to the top of her head. Now I'm not going to go up to her hairline because obviously part of that, I'm trying to get like to the top of her scalp. So 5.5. And here's how easily you can do this. I had no idea that it was this easy. You take what you want. Now I want 7 inches. You divide it by 5.5 equals 127%. So if I were blowing this up to fit this size, I would put this in the photocopier and blow it up 127%. Or you could go down to Staples or Office Max and ask them to do it. So keep that in mind because the proportion of your subject on the paper is very, very important. So we have the picture all drawn in on our 300-pound paper. I've got my subject to look at here. Now it's time to think about doing some actual paint on the paper. The first thing I like to do is called the mother wash. And that is, I want to get a nice tonal color here for her skin. This is not a very good photograph, but it was good enough that I could paint this picture. I've had a great time with this particular subject. So what I want to do, because this is a Caucasian light-skinned person, I just want to get a nice light skin tone. And I want to use colors that are non-staining. In this particular case, I'm going to skip Windsor Yellow. That's a staining color. I'm going to take some Areolin. If the skin tone were a little more gray, kind of ruddy, let's say this was a gentleman who's had a lot of time outdoors, I'd probably use raw sienna. That's an excellent choice. The other thing I could do is New Gamboge. Now this is New Gamboge. See, it's a much warmer color. So if they have a really warm toned skin, I probably would start with New Gamboge. But I'm going to do the Areolin, and then I'm going to take a red. So pick a yellow, either New Gamboge, Areolin yellow, or raw sienna. Those are the 3 choices I would make. And then I'm going to take some quinacridone coral. It's one of my very favorite colors. It's non-staining. It's a lovely color. Look at that. So this is an orange. That's what I'm looking for, just a nice orangey skin tone here. I could also use permanent rose, which, believe it or not, is a non-staining color. I would not use alizarin crimson. That's very staining, very dark. So here we have Areolin, coral, and it's really, really important. And things that are really important I have made darker. Okay, so it's really, really important that the first thing you do is wet the skin tone. Just simply wet it over the eyes, over the teeth, down the chin. I have a very small chin here. And then the other thing that's really important is you must use a synthetic brush. Don't try to do this with sable or any kind of a natural brush. Use your synthetic brush. So I always have a little tissue handy here. We've got the surface wet. Now I'm going to take and paint in on the entire surface this skin tone. Oh, this is fun. I love doing portraits. And I think it's good to start doing your portraits when you have rules. Do this, do this, do this. And then you can make up your own rules later. Now on this particular sun side, see this is the sun side. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take that same areolan yellow and I'm going to put some yellow over here on the sun side. And then I'm going to take my warm color, the Quin Coral, and put that over here on the shadow side. So this is looking a little scary, but just relax. Now we're going to lift. And see, we can lift these colors because we wet the surface first. So wherever I see these beautiful lights, I'm going to lift them. See, her bottom lip is lighter. I always like to lift it out of the eyes. And see this flat brush, this is an excellent lifting brush. It's damp and it's got all these bristles. There's a little light tone here. There's some bounced light underneath the chin. And I want to get a nice line here. There's actually some bounced light over here. And then we've got this lovely line in here. There's bounced light under the nose. So you look for all those lights here above the lip line. There's also some bounced light over here. So let's lift a little out over here. So let's go back. Anytime you lift color, it rolls back in again. So there's pretty much our little mother wash. Ooh, it's got a nice little light over here. So there's our mother wash. We're just going to let that dry. And when I come back, I'm going to mix up a shadow wash and we're going to work on these really exciting shadows. Okay, don't forget to download this off the internet because it's a nice hard copy of everything we're going to be doing. And what I do is I recommend that you reread. Just before you start a section, reread this so that you're kind of refreshed about what to do. And I was looking at the picture and deciding this hat is so prominent that the next thing I'm going to do is paint the hat. And I forgot to tell you this in the beginning. My Watercolor Without Boundaries book actually features this young lady, which is one of the reasons I chose her as a subject. I had just tons of great subjects, but I just had to do this gal. She's just so cute. So now, when it's time to paint something like a big hat like this, I actually like to wet it first because I don't want a lot of hard edges. I want colors kind of going from a sun side to a shadow side and some of the colors blending in. So I just very loosely wet it. And it's such a beautiful, the red hat. Now, one of the things I would choose to do, the hat is kind of red and pink, but I would still start with some yellow on the sun side. So I'd put some yellow in. This just happens to be a little Windsor yellow. And then I'd probably go into just go around my color wheel here. I'd probably go into some Scarlet Lake. And isn't it interesting, these are colors that don't move much in water. So if you want to blend them, you actually have to blend them because they're not going to move. They're not going to blend by themselves. And then I would probably move into my quinacridone coral. And as we're moving away from the sunlight, I'd go into my darkest darks, which would be my alizarin crimson. So this isn't the final hat, but what it is it's a nice start. See all these soft blended colors? It's going to give you a nice effect. And then if you want to have a little fun with some of the textures on there, you can, because some of them are very soft. So let's say I took a little quinacridone burnt orange, and I would add some red to it. Maybe a touch of blue, a little Antwerp blue to brown it up a bit, a little more red to keep it red. And I probably would just put in a few of these darker tones to make it look like a knit cap, more or less. It's got a little pattern up here. It's kind of cute. Let's just start the pattern. Very free. Just have fun while you're doing this. Don't be all nervous because this is a portrait. It's no big deal. And then I would still come in, add more red to this, because the red is the primary color. So I would still put that final red touch in here to just to start suggesting that this is a knit cap and everything is soft. I'm a big believer in doing an underpainting that is soft, and then another painting later over the top that's in control with the harder edges. So I'm going to now just do a little bit of this. Oops, I actually should have started with the lighter color because that's the sun side. So let's do that. We'll start with the more pinky color. Here I am going into the face. What's going on here? Cool. This is exactly what I had in mind, just to get a little start going here with this dominant red hat. It's just so cute. So again, a little bit lighter on the sun side, a little darker on the shadow side. My paper's dry, so I can put in these crisp edges next to her face. I just opened up a brand new brush, number 10. I went shopping in my own store this morning. It was kind of fun. So now I'm set to have these nice, clean, pointed tip. I think you ought to treat yourself to a new brush when you start this. And this actually got a little darker than I wanted, so I'm going to lift a little bit out. Remember, this is just an underpainting. You're going to be going darker. And then the same thing here, the sun is touching this. So this is, as you can see, much lighter. And over here we'll lose this edge because it kind of melts into the hairline. Whenever things look not crisp like this, but lost, all you do is wet the edge and lose it. But make sure you keep those crisp edges nice and clean. Here too, I think it wouldn't hurt just to put a little touch of the darker color on this side, just a little bit of alizarin. We'll keep a nice contrast over here. And I always like to soften things when I get to the edge. It's called a vignette style. So I'm just going to leave that very soft. Let's soften a few of these edges. And then here too, this is kind of an edge. We don't know exactly what to do with that edge. When in doubt, fuzz it out. So see, both those edges there now are lost. These edges are crisp. Nice transition here between the sun side and the shadow side. We're going to let this dry, and then when I come back, I'm going to do all those beautiful shadow shapes. Another thing that's really cool is just to put a base coat down. This will just take a second. But if you look at this beautiful little sweater she's wearing, it's in over here too. So I always like to wet it first because that gives me the nice soft edges for the underpainting. I'm going to take the color of cobalt blue, and my cobalt's dirty, so just give me a minute. I got to get down to a nice clean cobalt blue. And what's going to happen here is I'm just going to put this cobalt over here into the edges. I'm going to simulate like this is some kind of a knit sweater, which it is, and just kind of create that. Maybe another soft edge here. And remember how I said every time I get to an edge, I do what I call a vignette style. So I just basically wet that. We'll throw some little spots in there. Make it look like it was really knit. Same over here. We've got some beautiful, soft, tonal washes. This is pretty much all in shadow over here, so we can just kind of wipe this out. This is pretty soft over here, so we'll just put a little bit of a touch of a shadow on the shadow side. Same here, we're just going to put a little touch of the shadow over here on the shadow side. So I'm always aware, okay, my sun is over here, my shadow's over here. I want to portray that throughout the picture, in the clothing, in the face, even in the background. When we do the background a little later, I'm going to make a sunny side here and a shadow side here. Okay, we're going to let this dry, come back, and I'm going to do the shadows. Well, we're at the most exciting stage of portrait making, and that is these really incredible shadow areas. I told you how important they were in the beginning. If you don't have a photograph with these strong shadow areas, it's hardly worth even doing it, because you need these to create the shape of the nose, the actual beauty of the lips and the little chin sticking out. See how it's light here and shadow here? That gives it volume. So it's very, very important. And then what I like to do is just study the photograph for a little bit. And if you'll notice, look at the reflected light over here. There's reflected light under the chin, on that upper lip, under the nose. So those reflected lights are also an important issue, because when you create this dark shadow through here and under the nose, you want to show that reflected light there. It identifies the shape of her nose. Same with the lip. When you put these beautiful darks down here in the bottom lip, you want to show that reflected light on the upper lip. So study it a little bit, just kind of familiarize yourself with what you're facing here. And then here is the real treat. We're going to mix a shadow mixture. Now what I like to do is I like to do it in a separate cup, not on my palette where it might bump into other colors and become a problem. So what I do is I'll mix it in a separate cup. And I'm just going to use two colors. So the two colors I'm going to use are cadmium red light, or just cadmium red would work too. And then I'm going to make a pretty good wash of this. At one time I did all 10 of my grandchildren as a Christmas present, and it was really fun. I took little jars that you get jelly in when you go out to a nice place for breakfast, and I put their name on it, because you want to keep this mixture. You might decide to come back and add more darks, and as you add more darks, you need to have this mixture. You just re-wet it and you're back doing it again. Now I could have just put in squeezed out some paint. I probably should have done that. This is taking longer than I expected. Okay, so we're just going to take and check this out, and I always have to check it out on a paper, because remember how this dries much lighter. So I'm thinking I might want to go just a little bit darker. Now be sure to mix enough. I'm questioning, is this enough? I don't think this is enough. So I'm going to charge up some more here. I actually use a little bigger percentage of the quinacridone burnt orange. Now if you want to, you can also use burnt sienna. And the cadmium red light is fabulous. And see, both of these colors are non-staining. So when I put these down, I will be able to lift them and lose the edges. If you use staining colors, I used to do my portraits with alizarin crimson, and that was a staining color, and it was very difficult to lose edges, and it was very difficult to soften them later. Now see, this is just a little bit darker. That's what I want. I want it pretty dark. So we're ready to go. We're going to give Karlyn a little structure to her face. This is so exciting. So with my cup in one hand, I'm going to activate it over here. So remember how I said there's a bounced light over here? So that means I'm going to make it just a little bit lighter here. It starts and it goes right over the eye line, right through the eyes. And I know this always makes people a little nervous. And then as it goes over her nose, there's a little bit of a lift. And then it just sort of comes down here. Again, now it's a little darker over here, so I'm just going to come in a little bit darker. Up to the edge here, and there's that lovely edge coming around here. And because this is such a big shadow shape, what I'm going to do is right about here, I'm going to lose it. So with a couple of tissues, wet my brush, shake it out, see how I can just take that extra moisture, and coming in at right angles, I can lose that edge. That means this is going to account for this little bit of bounced light down here. And then I'm going to wet it, shake it, come in, and this edge is crisp. But this edge starting in here is much softer. We're going to lose that edge. And then I'm going to turn it this way and lose this edge. So whenever you have an edge that's going on a cheek line, over the lips, around the nose, those edges are going to be lost. So I hope you can see the difference here. This is a lost edge. Pick up a little bit of that red I slopped. This line in here is hard, and then these lines are soft. And I don't really want the eyes to be quite that dark, so I'm going to lift them out a little bit. And see, the beauty of this paper is you can lift. I would never use any other paper. This is Arch's 300-pound hot press. It's the best. And see, there's another edge in here on her eye line. There's also a light edge up here. So wherever you see that light, get in there, lift it. There you go. Okay, so there's the first, there's the first one. And I'm just going to pick up, I think what I'll do, I'm just going to start here under the nose. I've got a nice tip. This is a nice round brush. That's the brush you want to use. There's actually a kind of a hard line there defining under the nose. There's another line here. And then it goes across and down. And the lip is enclosed in this. And we need to pull this out to approximately here. So you just do little shapes at a time. I know that looks a little strange, but that's it. Okay, now the lip is a continuous soft area. First thing we're going to lose is that line on the lip. These lines under the nose are crisp, but this line is soft. So we're going to lose that line into a nice soft line. This line over here is soft. It's that nice edge of her skin. So that's what you do. Every time you put this down, you go, okay, this is hard, this is soft, this is soft, this is soft. I see I went into the bottom lip here. I'm going to clean that up a little bit. So don't worry if you slop around. I'm pretty sloppy today because with your brush you can pick it up again. I love it. Okay, now examine the area you're going to do. I'm looking. See, there's a beautiful bounced light right under here, but it's dark and dark. So here we go. We're going to pick up our color, test it on the palette, and we're going to come across here with this chin line. We're going to come up here under the lip line. It's dark in here. Kind of comes down like this and across, and it's kind of a cute little round thing here. Now, isn't that about as ugly as you can paint it? I mean, that's pretty ugly. Now the trick is to shake your brush out, take out that extra moisture, come in here, always at right angles. So that means turning the paper if you have to, always at right angles, and lose that edge. Wet it, shake it. Let's do this again. Come in here and squeeze the top above the ferrule, but leave your little tip sticking out. Then you come in here and you very gently lose that edge. We got a little added entertainment for you. They're out there cutting some branches. Now comes this reflected light. Ooh, let's see if we can do it. So we're going to come in here and lift a little light that identifies that bottom of the lip. We're going to leave this edge hard. These edges are soft. Ooh, it's coming along. It's coming along. Nice. This is all going to be dark along here. Okay, let's have a little fun with this beautiful shape over here. First of all, it's a straight, hard shape here. It's a little triangle coming in here to the lip line. And then it kind of fans out into a nice soft edge. So see, you put the shape down, wet your brush, shake it out, come in here, take that extra moisture off. The edges that are hard, we're going to leave hard and lost into the lips. This edge right here is relatively hard, but this is soft. So we're going to just, with a little bit of moisture in our brush, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Wet it, shake it, take out that extra moisture, leave the moisture on the tip. And then this is all soft. This is her little cheek. So we're going to come in here and lose that beautiful line going into her cheek. So this whole exercise is fabulous. It's all about hard edges and lost edges. And see, this needs to be softened in here too. So it's all soft. In fact, this is looking a little hard. I think I'm going to soften that too. I usually end up softening everything. That's the kind of person I am. I love soft edges. We'll clean that up. We'll pull this out a little bit more to identify her cheek line. We'll leave this little edge crisp, but we will soften this just a little bit more. And see, if you don't like these, you can do it over again. If you take too much off, don't worry about it. That's the fun. You can do it over and over and over. Okay, now I want to come in and do her lip line. So I'm going to come in here, and her lip line is darker over here. And it's pretty dark on the bottom here. And see, each time you bump into an existing shadow that you just painted, it should be dry. I might be getting into a little bit of trouble here, but you've got all the time in the world, so give yourself a chance for this to dry. Now lose the edge, lose the edge. Oh, look at those little lips. Aren't they cute? Now we need more light in here. We'll lift it away. We want to keep this edge very light. Very often when you have lip lines, even eyeglasses, some areas are lost completely. And see, that's the case right here. See how that lip line and actually this upper lip line are lost. And that's important. So let's get in here and lose this one too. There we have it. 2 lost lip lines, 2 crisp areas here. And see, we'll go over these again and again. This needs to be darker in here, but you can't do it all at once. Okay, now comes a really important shape. See what I mean about if you don't have these crisp lines, you can't even see that nose, but you're gonna see it now. So I'm gonna come down. First of all, this line comes across, it kind of goes around the tip here, and it comes down, but we've got that beautiful white line there, so I have to keep that white. And then this comes down, goes around the nose here, comes out here, and that identifies that lovely shape on her face. And see, I didn't draw those in. I like to wing them. Just let it happen. Might not be perfect, but we don't like perfection. Okay, so now we have to lose this edge into the other shadow. We have to lose this edge into the other shadow. This edge is soft. Let's soften it right now. And this hard edge, oh, look how soft that is. Turn it at right angles. Take your brush, wipe it so the tip still has a little moisture on it. Come in here and soften, soften, soften. All the way around here, it's soft, 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 soft. I need to back it up. I pulled it out quite a bit. See how I can pull it back if I need to. Oh, look at that. Keep checking your edges. Watercolor is always going to move. So just do what you have to do. It's not a perfect art form. And you know, everybody starts out, they're so nervous about this. This has got to be softened too. They're so nervous about doing these edges. And I walk around the room and they are so confident. This is fun, you know, they don't want it to stop. They don't want to run out of edges to paint. It's so much fun. So just keep fussing until you'll know when you can't fuss anymore. There is that stage. Oops, she's starting to look pretty good. Okay, now is when I come in and start doing over again. See, this needs to be darker. So I'm going to go under the nose, around the nose here. Even though I did this before, I have to do it again. The upper lip is darker. Wet the brush, shake it out, come in, mop it up. Immediately lose this edge into the shadow. Immediately lose this edge. Remember now, turn it at a right angle and just come in and touch that into a nice lost edge. See, it's getting better. You're really starting to see the shape of the nose, the shadow. Oh, this is fun. And you use the same color over and over. Like this little corner here is darker. Let's go in, make it darker. This top edge here is darker. Let's make it darker. This little bottom lip is darker. Let's come in and make it darker. So you just correct. Just come in until you're comfortable with it, until you're happy. Now there's she's got just a little bit of definition here under the eye. Sort of a little triangle shape. It starts right at the edge of the eye. There it is, just a nice little triangle. Now we're going to wet the brush, shake it out, take a new clean tissue, wipe it off. And the most important thing, that edge is hard, this edge is soft. Lose it. So we're going to come in, lose that edge. I think I'm going to lose this one just a little bit. I don't like hard edges. There. Now isn't that amazing? That little bit really helps to define. And then what I would do now is I'd look for more details. See, it's a little bit darker up here. So let's come in and add a little bit darker shadow right across the top here. We're going to have to, oops, lose the edge. So it's a nice soft transition here, but now it's going to remain just a little bit darker. Oh, good. Now what I would do off camera is I would just continue to add some more darker shapes here, in here, define that chin a little more. See, that chin got, that chin needs to be darker down here. I think I kind of missed it a bit there. And darker under the lip. So I'm just going to do this last shape, showing you how you do it 2 and 3 times. You just keep doing it till it's right, till you're happy. I should say till you're happy. Who knows what's right? This is just a crapshoot. And another thing I like to do is identify the eyes right away. So I'm just going to take some pure quinacridone burnt orange, because this young lady has beautiful brown eyes. And I'm just going to paint the center and the edge of the eye with just quinacridone burnt orange. Now if you have a little blue-eyed person, you might decide to put in some cobalt blue or maybe manganese. But you can see already, oh, it's so cool. And then I like to do this, even though it's not in the photograph, I like to do just a little bit of light on the sun side. There. That little bit of light just adds life. So there you go. This is the most important wash. This is going to define all the shadows. Keep your little cup. I've got her name written on here, Karlyn. I have a number of these around the studio. And I do need to add some more darks to this, so I will. Okay. One of the things that I think is very important is to get your background in right now. Try to see when I get this background in, we've pretty much touched every part of the picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet it first, because this is an underpainting. A lot of people come in and decide to make their background a lot darker. Now if I had hair here, I would wet into the hair. But because it's a hat, I'm going to come close to the hat and leave a nice crisp edge. But don't forget, hairlines need to be softer. Here's an example. See how nice it is to have the hairline kind of melt into the hair, but now and then you do a crisp edge. And if it's dark hair, it doesn't make any difference if these colors go into the hairline, because they're, oops, well, we got a nice soft edge there. Okay, and we're going to come around here into the shadow side. I probably will lose edges over here, because shadows very often have lost edges. Sun side has crisp edges. So we're going to start with, oh, I think I'll just go to my brightest color here, my Windsor Yellow. Oh, and it's amazing what a difference it makes when you start putting a little background down. Then you've got something going. So let's put a little yellow, bounce a little bit of that over here on this side. And then let's go into a little bit of that fleshy color. Remember I had Aeolian Yellow and quinacridone Coral. So see, that just bounces a little bit of the flesh tone up there. I do like that. So a little more Aeolian, a little more Quin Coral. Let's put a little hint of that over here. Let's pull some down here. You could even leave some white if you're really good. This color goes over here too. And then we want to go into a cool color. Now a real easy one that's very bland is just cobalt blue. So if we put a little cobalt over here, get it a little darker than the sweater, which is also cobalt. And if we don't do too much into the yellow, although cobalt doesn't like to be green, I don't necessarily want greens in the background, although that's okay too, she's outside. And then I want to pull these cool colors down here. So see, the cool colors are going to go from this side through here over to here. Nice. Now another lovely color that is a nice transition between the red and the blue is permanent magenta. See how nice that is? So now we have a transition going here. So let's see how that's going to work. We'll put a little bit of that color between the warm and the cool. Let's put a little bit up in here. Let's put a little bit more up in here. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. And see, if that melts into the yellow, we'll just get a nice gray. And grays in the background are good. I do like to have some gray. Now if you forgot to leave some light, it's amazing. You can lift right back to the white of the paper if you want to. So you can just maybe lift out a light. I like that contrast, although this is going to be very dark. It's not going to be much of a contrast later, but it's okay. Okay, and if you want to, you can do a little tipping and turning and a little softening with your sprayer. That needed a little softening. So you can see how wet this is. And I kind of like the colors to blend together a little bit because I want the background to not be a big deal. I just want it to be something kind of soft. Again, you can lift a little color, tissue. That's good. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. Good job, Karlyn. This is when your painting really comes together. It's what I call the crevice darks. And the interesting thing is, the dark we're going to mix isn't real dark. It's perfect. So by taking quinacridone burnt orange, which is not a value 9 on a scale of 1 to 9, it's probably more like a 7. And we're going to take cobalt blue, which again is only about a value 5 or 6. So when you mix these two colors together, you're going to end up with a nice dark brown, but it isn't that dark. If you really want a dark brown, and there are times we're going to do this, then you would take quinacridone burnt orange and French ultramarine blue. Now French ultramarine blue is a value 9, and when you mix these two together, you get an absolutely dark, much darker than that. So we're going to stick with this dark right over here, cobalt and either burnt sienna or quinacridone burnt orange. Gives us a lovely dark brown. Mix up enough. If you want it warmer, you put more quin orange in it. If you want it cooler, you put more cobalt. I think I want it just a hair warmer than that, so I'm going to put a little more orange. Perfect. Get a tissue ready. I am now using what I call my script brush. You can see it has a lovely point, and it's going to get me into those edges, and it's a synthetic brush, so I'll be able to use it to lose some of the edges. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with that upper eye, which is really dark, 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 dark. And we're going to come in and paint that beautiful dark edge. We're going to put a little bit of a light edge under, a dark edge underneath, but keep it lighter. We're going to go dark on the outside edge here and a dark center to the eye. So it's amazing, you can get all this done in one shot. And then she does have a little second layer of skin here. We'll paint that. Now those edges are all hard, they have to be softened, but for starters, I'm just going to let it dry and move on to this side. So it's the same thing, we're going to come in, do the edge, a little bit lighter underneath, the dark on the outer eye and the dark in the center. And we're also going to do a little bit of dark here. Now comes the exciting part, the lost edges. So critical. So my brush is now just damp, and I'm going to come in at right angles. I'm going to soften this edge, so that that little layer of skin I was trying to define is just soft, not that dark, hard, edgy. Same with this under the eye thing. I'm going to soften that even more. I'm going to take my little script brush and lift away some of that. Lift it away so it's nice and soft. So all the edges of the eye are now softer. Clean it up. Much softer. I'm also going to put a little shadow over the top of this eye. Much better. See the difference? A little soft shadow coming down. I might even add a little color there. So just get that nice soft shadow covering about half of the eye itself. And you can even come in and do a little bit of the white of the eye too. Just pull a little bit of softness down there to form a shadow. Because the eye is set in, it is in shadow. And you can see the difference between that eye and that eye. Now we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to soften this edge underneath. Soften, soften, soften. Don't wimp out now. Going to soften that. We're going to soften the corners. We're going to soften this corner. Always have to come in at right angles to do it. And then this line up here is just an outline. Right now, I just want it to be nothing more than a nice soft line. Soften. We're almost there. Just a nice soft line. Okay, now we need to take and soften and get a shadow going on the upper part of the eye, and a little shadow going about halfway across the eye. Now if the color doesn't activate enough, just take a little more color and spread it around, because you need to have about half the eye in shadow. I know people who actually mask the eyeballs so they're white. The interesting thing is they are not white. Eyeballs are very much in shadow, and they don't need to be stark white. Much better. I'll come back and soften those a little more. And now let's move on to the nose. And so we have this lovely, lovely dark crevice dark, which kind of flashes right across here. And it's quite dark over here. Comes around. There's a bit of a crevice dark here. Wet my brush, soften, soften, soften. Soften this edge under here. Soften this edge. Mostly it's the edge underneath that gets softened. Now we have those nice crevice darks in the nose, but the most important crevice darks are in the lips. So that center line, the center line of the lips is very dark, very dark. And so we're going to go even darker here. I'm going to put that dark color right on her lip line here to identify it. It's a little bit darker here. Little bit of dark up here. Now we're going to get the brush out. First of all, we're going to soften this edge over here. Then we're going to soften this dark center line. I actually pulled this out a little far. I'm going to lift it back a bit. And then this upper lip line has to be a lost edge here and softened. A little bit softer over here. So the softening makes all the difference in the world. Just take your time. Even my little script brush makes a beautiful softening brush. And the biggest crevice darks are the upper lids, the dark crevices in the nose, and the dark lip line. Now, I did do a little bit of dark back here. I don't want you to do much of that. That's not a good idea. Okay, now using the same color, we could come in here and start developing some of these beautiful darks that are gonna show off the side of this face here. Ooh, that's fun. I'm gonna add a little red to this because this is actually her hat, but it's a very dark shadow, so what the heck, let's get it in there. A little more red, a little more dark. And then all the way along here, to define the braid of the hat, we can just put this in as a hard edge, dry paper, in control. You guys ought to be happy. And then before this dries, what I want to do is I want to soften that edge. And I'm going to go to a little bigger brush. I'm going to go to the brush I did this whole thing with. Again, I'm going to wipe it off. And I'm just going to come in here and lose that edge. Not everywhere. Some hard edges are nice. But I'll just lose a few here and there. There. Ooh, isn't that exciting to see that beautiful, beautiful dark? I might even lose this edge a bit. And same over here. Let's come in, take our quinacridone burnt orange, our cobalt blue. Going to make a nice dark. Let's add some red to it in this case because we're still defining her hat. But let's get some nice dark. Dark, 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 dark. We'll keep that edge kind of rough because it's a knit hat. And see, it's very dark shadow under here. And this is where the skin tone actually changes, because now you're comparing the color of that skin to this very strong dark. Ooh, that's exciting. And this is going to be hair. Hair coming out plus a shadow. So you can see it's starting to come along. When in doubt, fuzz it out. Let's get those darks up here too. I like the addition of the red in there. I think that was a nice idea. And so now we don't know, we got to paint the hair later. We'll just come in and do just a little bit of that. And then she has this lovely, lovely dark, it's the top of her snowsuit. So I'm just going to take a little phthalo green, alizarin crimson, a little more green, and we're going to start establishing some of these beautiful shapes, this gorgeous dark. Any kind of high contrast like that. Don't wait too long to get it in there. Here we've got the kind of lost and found edge of her knit sweater. So that'll be broken shapes, this will be hard shapes. All you have to do is look at the photograph. And the fun thing is, so I hope you'll try it with all these rules I'm giving you, then just do it on your own. Okay, now as I get closer to the bottom, I'm gonna wet my brush, shake it out, come in and lose this into a nice soft edge. The old vignette style again. We've got a beautiful strong dark right in here. Make sure you have a brush with a lovely point. Let's put some more red in there. There's another really strong dark shape here. It's the other. Oh, that needs a little more green. Darken it up a bit. So it's starting to come together. Now, when it comes to the hat, see this is a little bit too light. Now I need to have a little fun. I'm going to come in, first of all, with some pure yellow on the dry paper. Remember it was wet before? So all the colors were a little different. I'm going to pull that yellow down. I always like to show that penetration of the sun on your subject. All these bounced lights, oh, that's half the fun. Now I'm going to go into an orange. This happens to be Windsor orange. Nice transitional color. It cracks me up that machine decided to do some work outside our door here. We hope you don't mind it. Okay, so now you can see we've got a better contrast going here. And then as I move along, I'm going to get into the more pinky colors. Ta-da! Isn't that lovely? I think again we'll have a little fun with the texture of the hat. This is quinacridone coral, which I'm going to pink up this headband here. Whoever made this lovely hat actually did have some nice color choices. Anytime you see a hard edge like that, just soften it. We're going to keep these colors soft, and then as we move into the other side, I'm going to go into the alizarin crimson, much darker. And we'll put in some of those interesting shapes that happen to be in there. I love that. So just pure alizarin crimson. Can't beat it. And this is what I would do now. I would just continually make adjustments, more contrast, and just have fun. And anything you discover on your own, write it down, because you want your portrait to be your personal portrait. Right now, this is something I came up with, and I know you can come up with your own. Now, as this gets into the darker side, I'm not only going to put alizarin, I'm going to put a little bit of that nice brown, because I'd like to have a nice contrast here. So here's some of that beautiful brown that we used for the crevice dark, just happens to be on my palette. Let's get a little bit of that in there too. So that's enough fussing for the hat. Off camera, I'll fuss some more. We're trying to keep these art bites under a half an hour if we can. So you can invite some friends over and paint. Oh, you're going to have so much fun. I'm going to pull some of this beautiful red down. I actually got a little dark there, and I need to have the red. Look at how I can lift that color. And put in the red. Oh, I love this paper. I know I shouldn't be so repetitive, but I can't help it. I'm just that enthused about it. And then this needs to be darkened. I'll key up that. And then one of the things I love to do is to take my script brush, see the little brush, and I would actually come in and show some of the stitching, on this lovely sweater. I bet her grandma made it. Ooh. So we'll show some of that stitching. Now we need to have the contrast of some hard edges. You saw me put this in before, totally wet into wet. So now we need to have a few crisp edges. So what we'll do is we'll just show a little bit of the stitching. Might add a hard edge here and there. Some of the stitching. Oh, I got a little stitching over there I didn't even plan on. And then whenever I'm uncomfortable with an edge, I'm uncomfortable with that edge, turn this around, soften it. When in doubt, fuzz it out. That's the best policy. So see, we have a few hard edges, a few soft edges. I like it. I would say maybe a few more hard edges over here. Lose these. See, what I'm trying to do is keep the contrast here between that and that. And in terms of this particular picture, I like the contrast. I'm probably going to leave the background the way it is. I love this little bit of bounced light over here, the cool colors bouncing over here. Now, if I feel I want a higher contrast at any time, remember this was just plain old cobalt blue? If I want to and add a little higher contrast, what I can do is put that in, wet my brush, shake it out. This is the magic trick. Come in and lose that edge. So you can create the contrast, and as fast as you create it, you can lose it into the existing colors that are already there. There you go. And I think I might want to repeat a little bit of that over here. So when your paper's dry, you can always layer the color on, come in and lose that edge, and just create a nice contrast. See, that looks better. So we're gonna let this dry, and I'm gonna come back and talk about how to paint the hair. Now we don't have good hair on this one, so I'm going to paint hair on another subject. Now, in addition to some of the shadows that I'm going to be adding in here using this very same mixture, every time I layer it, it goes a shade darker. And then I'm also going to be adding some of the rosy cheeks and some of the bounced light. So again, examine your picture. See, when I see this beautiful red here, look at how it's bouncing up into the chin, it's bouncing into her cheeks. Plus she's outside, she probably has rosy cheeks. And that's what's missing right now. She's looking a little pale. So let's take a transparent color. This happens to be quinacridone coral. Let's turn it on its side here. Let's give her some rosy cheeks. Oh my God, this is scary. You put the color down and you kind of form it into the triangle you're interested in. Wet your brush, shake it out, take the extra moisture out, and this edge is totally lost, totally lost. Now, we don't want this edge that crisp either, so we're going to lose that edge too. And look, she's got rosy cheeks. This is so cool. Let's do the same thing here with the chin. See, there's a beautiful little bounced light in here. Okay, now we're ready to take out and soften those edges. Soften, soften. Oh, what a difference it makes to add these beautiful warm colors. So just come around. It's exactly the same process that you used to create these edges. Let's give her a little glow on the nose here. She's outside having a good time. Let's put a little color on there. Now it looks terrible like that. The trick is losing the edge. And you've figured that out by now. So it's all about losing the edge. And if we give her a little rosy cheek over here, again, we know the cheek line is here. We want to give her a nice little cheek line. So there we go. Wet, soften, and soften. There aren't very many edges that got left hard. So just that nice soft color. And see, even as I look at this photograph, above here, it's not a very good photograph, but there's a lot of reflected light from this hat. There's a lot of warm in that hat. So just coming in, losing that edge, softening and losing that edge. Oh, look at how nice that is. Love it. And see, you can even have reflected light on the clothing. I'm noticing some down here. It's the white, but let's bounce a little color over there. Again, soften the edge. And even if you don't see the color, sometimes I will just bounce a little light in here. Once you soften it, it just becomes a lovely little glow of color. And it just helps to pick up that feeling of this gorgeous hat bouncing light all over. Okay, the next big thing is hair. Now, this young lady has black, black, black hair. So I'm going to take some quinacridone burnt orange and some French ultramarine blue. This is a very, very dark blue. When we mix these two together, we're going to get almost a black. And that's what I'm looking for, really dark, dark, dark. So coming in from her hairline here, and see there's all kinds of little wisps coming out. I should have painted that before, but I'll figure it out. But she's got little wisps of hair coming out all over the place here. It's fun. And see, this is all very dark. I'm going to go just a little bit darker. The higher the contrast, the better. I have to redesign her cheek a little bit because I didn't do a very good job. Then again, wet your brush, lose that edge, let the hairlines come out. Okay, and the same thing's happening over here. That beautiful little wisps of hair are coming out. So we'll pick it up with our script brush. We'll get those hair wisps coming out as dark as we can. I can see where this could even be darker, but I'm not going to mess around with it now. And then we'll pull that dark in. So now this is cool. We're going to have an even darker area here. And again, wet our brush, lose a few areas. And we could even suggest that maybe she has some eyelashes up here. We could use this dark to define some parts of the hat that need a little more defining. It's really fun to do the last part, these high contrast. This edge is way too hard. I'm going to soften it. This has to be softened. This has to be softened a little bit. So don't forget, when you have a really high contrast like that, on a shadow area, soften it. On a sun side, keep it crisp. So we're going to move into how to paint hair. This was nothing. It was just the suggestion of some of her hair flying away. But in real life, we usually have a full head of hair staring at us. This happens to be an earlier photo or painting I did of my grandson Brody. And it was fun to do, especially with the glasses and some of these hard edges that were cast. That was really fun to do. But he's a little Norwegian, so you can see he's got golden hair. So I tried to keep a little bit of the white of the paper. This is quinacridone gold. And then if you take quinacridone gold and permanent magenta, these are the complements. If you take permanent magenta, quinacridone gold, you mix those two together, see what you get? You get this lovely gray. And that's the gray I used in here to create the shadow side of his hair. So it was a combination of complements. Dark against light, dark on the shadow side, much lighter and brighter on the sunny side. This is one of my grandsons, little Andre. And Andre has very dark hair, but you can see I still added highlights. So when I made this dark hair, I wet it first. That's really important. Hairlines, the hair has to be wet. What I did is I came in with some quinacridone burnt orange, and then I took a mixture of quinacridone burnt orange and ultramarine blue and made this very dark, almost black. It's a brownie black. And you can see how I saved just a few of the highlights. Now on this one, you can see there's a beautiful light here shining through her hair on the sun side. And so many people paint the hair just flat on dry paper. No, you have to wet it first. And you get these soft, beautiful edges. Look at, we've got the white of the paper, the quin gold coming in, some pure quin orange coming down. Then I do the mixture of quinacridone burnt orange and cobalt blue, and that gives me the beautiful browns in here. Carried some of those warm yellows in here, but look what happened over here. There are no highlights over here. This is a shadow side. It's all dark. And see, I could even go as dark as this mixture here of French ultramarine blue and quinacridone burnt orange, so that the hair goes all the way from black to brown to gold to the white of the paper. Here's another one. This is Skylar. This one was really fun to do because again we had these extreme highlights going into the white of the paper, going into the quin orange, going into the dark brown and the very dark black over here on the shadow side. And then I even took a razor blade and scraped some of those highlights. So don't be afraid to do that. If you've got a few wisps of hair you missed, go ahead, get out that razor blade. So just to give you a real quick lesson here, I'm going to start with the hair, and I never do the whole hair at once. It's too much. Concentrate. See, I would just concentrate on this. And I wouldn't be doing it at this stage, but I needed to have hair to show you. So I'm not going to do the tail, I'm not going to do the shadow side. I'm just going to focus on capturing that light. I would start with the Quin Gold, pure, just pure Quin Gold. Come in here and think of the gesture of the hair. All the while you're painting this, think of the gesture. I'm going to leave some whites. I'm also going to come in and do a little quinacridone burnt orange because that's the base color for our brown. And over in here in more of the shadowed areas. This is the full sunlight. But over in here in some of these shadowed areas, I'm going to actually put in some of this beautiful quinacridone burnt orange. And we'll pull that up. Shadow, orange, shadow, some nice orange in here. Then I'm going to take my script brush, I'm going to take my quinacridone burnt orange, my cobalt blue, and I'm going to make a nice dark. And see, at this stage, while it's still wet, I would come in and paint in these gorgeous darks. So isn't that beautiful? All those colors, pure colors, mixed on the paper. That's the way I like to do it. And then down here the paper's dry, so I'm going to be getting some real fun crisp edges. We like that too. And see, this hair would be painted later. You wouldn't be painting over the skin tone at this stage. And this is fun. See, she's just got a lot of flyaway hair. So we'll just have a little fun putting some of that in too. But this will give you the idea how the hair is done. It's done wet into wet as the paint dries. And see, it isn't quite dry yet, but as it dries, I would keep coming in until I got these beautiful crisp edges. And that's going to define the ear, it's going to define all kinds of things. I actually don't like that, I'm going to soften it. Now at the very end, I would take quinacridone burnt orange, French ultramarine. I would mix that very, very dark, dark color, and that would be the final dark that I would add, especially along the shadowy edges here, back in here. And of course, this would be the dark that I would use to define this edge. And you can see, even without the skin tones on here, that it's very exciting to have that nice strong dark. So very often the hairline is what defines those beautiful contrasts to the skin. There you go. I think that's enough information to give you some idea about the hair. And for my last death-defying act, oh, this is so fun. This is called picking out the highlight in the eye. And I just take a plain old razor blade. I had an eye doctor in my class who had to leave the room every time I did this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a spot within that center pupil, and I'm just going to dig it in and pull it. Oh, can you believe that? I'm going to find the same position over here, dig it in, and pull it. And look at the difference. It just, the eyes just sparkle. Now, if you want to, you can give it a second one. I'm going to do it. Just a little smaller one over here. That's kind of cool too. And the funny thing is, these are hanging chads. So if you want to, you can push it back up again. So if you put it in the wrong spot, push it up. But I actually liked it, so I'm going to pull it back down again. There and there. So our little hanging chads, aren't they just glorious. It's the perfect ending. So, I hope your painting goes well. I think portraiture, you should not be afraid of it. It's not that difficult, especially when it's step by step in about 8 different steps. You just do one thing at a time, sometimes on wet paper, sometimes on dry paper. I hope it goes well for you. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. Please check out our online store at karlynholman.com to find all the supplies that you saw here today, as well as our specials, upcoming workshops, and much more. I'm Karlyn Holman, bidding you farewell. Thank you for watching.